So I am about to show my age here, but in 1992, that was my freshman year of college. That was when Mattel released the Teen Talk Barbie, who was infamous for uttering such statements as, "Math class is tough." You probably remember that. Flash forward to 2014 when Mattel released a book called Barbie, I Can Be an Engineer. Things have changed, right? Not exactly. In fact, they might even be a little bit worse. Here to talk to us about this 2014 book and to find out if the newly released game developer Barbie handles these stereotypes any better is Casey Fiesler. Casey is an assistant professor in the Department of Information Science and Computer Science at the University of Colorado Boulder. She has a PhD in human-centered computing, a JD from Vanderbilt Law School. Currently, her focus is law, social computing, fan communities, and ethics. Welcome, Casey.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on. So let's start with the first 2014 Barbie book. What can you tell us about it?
Sure. So it was super disappointing, as you pointed out. And it was particularly disappointing because just the fact that there was a computer engineer Barbie at all was so cool. And then the book presented computer engineering as basically come up with some ideas and let the boys create it for you. And Barbie was also super incompetent to go along with that. So,
right, she's developing a game or developing something, and she says, "Oh, I'm just writing the designs. I'll let Kevin and Joe do the hard work."
Yeah.
So what happened? People complained about the book. Is the book still out there?
No, actually, after that happened, Mattel took it out of print, and which was interesting because it had been around since 2010.
Wow. So it wasn't until someone figured it out and wrote about it on the internet, and then they took it out of print.
Yep, exactly.
So you did a little remix of it. Can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When it came out, it was such a huge deal. Everyone in my social networks were talking about it. And so I thought, well, at least one of the good things that would come out of this is that it wasn't just a little bit bad. It was so bad that obviously something good would happen. And I thought, well, it'll be a meme or a remix. And I was neck deep in my dissertation at the time, which was partly about remix. And so I decided to do it myself. And so I created a new narrative for the story. I blanked all the pages and wrote something new, which instead of being about Barbie's incompetence was about her experiences with sexism and technology, and also how making a game is all about teamwork.
That's awesome. So, okay, now there's a new Barbie, a game developer Barbie. What is she like?
She's so much better. I actually have her right here. She actually kind of looks like a normal person. Like, she has sensible shoes.
Important.
And she has one thing that was also kind of cool is that she came with a little laptop that you're not going to be able to see it, but it has actual code on the laptop as opposed to the previous version, which was just ones and zeros. I guess she was coding in binary. And also, she doesn't have a book, but the text on the back of her box I quite liked. It pointed out that different parts of game development and that it's about working in a team and that kind of thing.
So, Scott, I think you know some about the development of the GameDev Barbie. What can you tell us about the development of it?
Well, as I understand it, there was a Barbie advisory council in 2015 that had lots of consultants from all over the place. And two of the people that I know who were on that were Kimberly Bryant, who started Black Girls Code, and Julie Ann Cromit from Google. And, people who know what they're doing, who came together and consulted with this kind of global Barbie advisory council, which sounds funny when you say global Barbie advisory council, but when you realize how impactful these kinds of things are with game developer Barbie or Ava DuVernay Barbie or the Misty ballet Barbie that are coming out, it really matters because these are the toys that we remember 30 years later, and these are the toys that shape who we are.
Did you want to show off your Barbies, Scott?
Oh, well, I like the dolls of the world. So I've got the Princess of South Africa with her Ndebele Ijali, which is a blanket there, and this is part of an older series. But I've also got Nigeria and Kenya and a number of other ones.
And I assume they can also code.
I'm sure that they could if I took them out of the box.
Okay.
But I think it's a little dusty, actually.
So you wrote a piece today, Casey, on Slate about game developer Barbie, and just about like the remix that you did, and just how far we've come. And I posted on Twitter. It's a great read. I highly recommend people go to Slate and read it. And I got a tweet from someone who watches our show often, and he said, and I get this a lot when we talk about this, just like, well, where are the women? Why aren't they here? Like, we would hire them if they were here. I think I have the. It
says,
tweet.
Why are there not more female developers? The doors are open, but none are coming. I don't understand. This is Mike Klain on Twitter.
So and you guys went back and forth in a great, surprisingly respectful for Twitter way. I enjoyed watching our conversation today. I mean, what would you say about people who say that where are they?
So there are a lot of reasons why we're seeing less women in computing now, and it's interesting because it's not only that women are underrepresented in computing, it's that they didn't used to be, and it's changed drastically. And there are lots of reasons for this. Some have to do with stereotype threat. Girls being told when they're quite young that computers are for boys in the same way that math is for boys, or adults assuming that they wouldn't be as into computers as they are into Barbies. Mm-hmm. Some of it has to do with some of the traditional ways that we've taught computer science. Sometimes it's an environment that values competition over collaboration, which tends to not be as good for girls. There's also things that have to do with the workplace once they get there. So even if women learn computer science, sometimes there's what's called a leaky pipeline. They're not getting the support that they need, or once they're there, they're not being valued, or they don't perceive themselves as being valued. I mean, even just little things like there's some research that shows that in projects in college, girls tend to be the note takers in groups because they're asked to, because that's the traditional kind of female role. And that kind of thing can happen in the workforce as well.
So Scott, I know when we started this show, you were saying and pointed out that your podcast is not two guys on Skype. So what would you say to this question? Where are they? The doors are open. Why aren't they coming?
Well, I think that it's not an appropriate question to say where are they? The doors are open. That implies that somehow all we needed to do was open the door, and that they would somehow find it. I think that when there is an inequality, and when there are people who are on top, you can't just say, hey, there's the ladder, climb that wall, step on this thing. You have to help people up. And I think it starts at grade school. It starts at stereotypes. It starts on TV. It starts in gaming. I mean, it is as Casey very wisely said, it is a complicated and multifaceted thing. But the number one thing that I think that allies can do, or male allies, is to simply diversify your network. Get to know more people. There are lots of amazing people there. If you look at the archives page of my podcast, I accidentally had 7 out of the last 8 shows were women in technology. And it was not hard to do that at all. And it was simply by diversifying my network.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because as this has been going on, there's been kind of, as there usually is, lively kind of chat in the chat room. And I saw a comment go by a little bit earlier that basically said, my sister, had Barbies when she was growing up, or I had 2 sisters. They had Barbies when they were growing up, and they grew up, when they were in adulthood, like they grew up fine, so they're okay. Like, what's the harm in something like this? I think that's kind of plays to your point, which is that if this is an influence or if this is even introduced at such a young age, whether they realize it, whether we realize it, or whatever, it is a representable role model and could potentially influence in one way or another whether a girl decides, hey, this seems like an interesting thing for me to explore. If instead it actually deters you from that just by a comment that says math is hard or whatever the case may be, then that's a path that is kind of somewhat severed long term. So it all plays. I think this is fantastic that they're making the change, but and they've been doing this with a lot of other aspects of Barbie as well, like body type and all sorts of stuff. So they're representing now better than they have in the past.
Could I pose a question to Casey? I've always felt that the best phrase, the number one phrase, if one has a tweet, is to say representation matters. Absolutely. And I'd be curious if she agrees with that.
I do. Yeah. I mean, when I first saw the computer engineer Barbie, I thought, well, the reason that this is so good is because it lets a girl see themselves in this role, and they don't get that a lot in, for example, the media. I mean, one of the reasons for the stereotypes in computing is because the representations of programmers that we see are like someone, probably a white man, alone in a cubicle programming all day, and that's all we know that computer science is, which is certainly not the case. And so game developer Barbie being something where a girl can see themselves having this career, and look, this career is about creativity and storytelling and not just sitting alone in a cubicle.